Arthur, I'm gonna bring you back to your senses. Bro, really trying to die right now, huh? Well, it's too soon! Thank you to our final patrons, Strawbones and Aaron. Now, before I hop into this breakdown / discussion on why Meliodas should stay alive post his battle with Arthur, please don't forget to leave your own thoughts on why Meliodas should stay alive in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support for as little as $1 a month. Get the exclusive videos, early content, and more. Now, let's hop into last week's poll. So, last week, I made a whole video on why I believe Meliodas should die, and of course, with that video, I asked y'all, do you believe Meliodas should die? And I'm not sure, can I really call it surprising? Does this really surprise me? Am I truly, genuinely surprised? Unsurprisingly, I'll admit, with the 54% of the vote, it actually was a closer margin than I thought, but with 54% of the vote, y'all said, no, he can get power crept, let's keep him in the narrative. Instead of getting rid of him, instead of removing him and debuffing him, by, unaliving him, we're going to keep him in the narrative. Only 46% of y'all agreed with me in the idea that, yes, Meliodas does need to get up out of here. Now, I will admit, I'm not shocked by this. People love Meliodas. But on top of that, I do also have ideas and plans of what could happen if Meliodas does not die here, considering, he is Meliodas. He's a bit too popular to just be dying like that. I could see it, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So thank you guys so much for participating in last week's poll. I love doing these. I love doing these discussion videos and getting your community consensus. It allows for a whole ton of just fun discussion in the comments. I love reading those. And make sure you get your input in on tomorrow's poll, dropping at 12 p.m. Make sure you're included in next week's discussion video. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? I'll the pencil here, and yes, Meliodas must live. Seriously, if he dies right now, I just don't know why we would do that. There's no reason to ever do that. It's not like I made an entire video and have repeatedly stated that I am craving his end of life. I would never. So under that assumption, let's talk about why Meliodas needs to stick around just a little bit longer. First things first, Meliodas kind of isn't a character right now. He's a relic of a previous series. Like, essentially, he is the exact same character, but in terms of Four Knights, we don't really know that. And a lot of the stuff he's been doing in Four Knights has arguably been out of character. Like, for Meliodas to have appeared over 15 chapters ago at this point, we've seen him in like 3. That's about it. He's not necessarily very well established within the Four Knights world in terms of panel time, established character, stuff like that. Like, Nazians is a more established character than Meliodas right now in terms of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Anne is a more established character than Meliodas right now in terms of Four Knights of the Apocalypse. Donnie is more of an established character than Meliodas right now in Four Knights of the Apocalypse. And note how I keep saying in Four Knights of the Apocalypse. If we are taking what Nakaba said at face value, the idea that this is a separate series that does not need to be paired with Seven Deadly Sins in order to enjoy it, then, long story short, Meliodas is kind of new and nothing. We know very little about his character other than the fact that he speaks demon, he's a king of Britannia, and he runs a bar. He also has some magic called Full Counter. I don't know what that does. But the thing is, with all that being established, executing him right now is kind of, a bit early. Like, no characters would really... I'm lying, by the way, but no characters really have a reaction to his death. And by characters, I mean readers. Like, we as4ers, in terms of Meliodas in Four Knights of the Apocalypse, will just be like, oh, Demon King Man dead. They be like that one ability that sometimes. Essentially, there's no real investment in this version of Meliodas. In terms of what Four Knights has to offer as its own standing series, killing Meliodas would make sense in a grand scheme narrative level. We've had Meliodas for technically over 300 chapters at this point. Really, now in the combination with the original series, the fact that we're on 77 of the second series, over 400 chapters. We've had Meliodas for a minute, but in the context of these 77 chapters, Meliodas showed up 15 weeks ago. Bro hasn't been around that long, and he hasn't done that much other than stand around. Quite literally stand around and walk around. He's been letting everyone else do the fighting, so offing him here would be kinda too soon. Another thing about Meliodas and why he needs to stay alive. not only would a reader of Four Knights of the Apocalypse who has no context of Seven Deadly Sins really understand it or have any emotional connection to it, but neither would our MC. He knows Meliodas. He's talked with Meliodas. He had a little experience with him. He had a fish pie or two. But other than that, the duo hasn't really been a duo. Like, Meliodas is that weird king dude that kind of poisoned Percy and showed him around town. That's the only connection that they have. So our main character has no real draw into this entire situation. And sure, we have two other main characters that would, Lancelot and Tristan, but we don't really care about them in terms of Percy being the MC. Percy would be a character who needs to have a reaction like this, but he can't have it because Meliodas hasn't really been around long enough to establish any sort of connection with Percy, which sort of leaves us in this awkward catch-22 situation where two of our characters may freak out about it, but our main one is kind of like, oh no, our Demon King, he's dead. Like it wouldn't really do anything. And thusly, we kind of need Meliodas to stick around more just so he can build connections with Percy. Another thing, it's a little bit uncertain on the rest of the longevity of the narrative if arguably the strongest leftover character from the previous narrative dies now. Like, unless there's some new specific rule that Arthur can only execute one person a day, and that's why he just leaves. If Meliodas dies here, the series is over. Because presumably, Lancelot, despite how strong he appears to be, and he should be stronger than Tristan according to Tristan's own words, he shouldn't be stronger than Meliodas. And if Meliodas were to die here, we sort of run into this weird plot issue where it's like, okay, Arthur, you got rid of your main threat, and then you have the rest of the four main threats gathered right here in front of you, or at least three of them, and you can go hunt down the fourth. Why not just execute them all now? And if Meliodas does die here, and he doesn't act as a stopgap for why Arthur can't execute them right now, it'll leave the plot with like a massive gaping hole in it that causes more problems than it's worth. Honestly, it'd be better to just keep him alive so we have a stalemate. And sure, that also causes plot problems, but still, those plot problems are a bit more manageable than the big glaring, oh no, why haven't you just done what you need to do? That's another thing. Another thing about Meliodas, he could work very, very well as a mentor character. He's not a main character anymore, unfortunately. As we can see, he's very much relegated to a side character role. Very much in the same vein as someone like Zeldris was in the original series. Like, not a main character, but a character with importance. He could be used well as this early game mentor for our cast of relatively inexperienced people. The only person who seems to have serious real world experience is Tristan because of the Grudge of Edinburgh movie, and Lancelot because of, his entire little mini adventure that he had with Jericho from 10 to 13. Other than that, both Percy and Gawain are kind of newbies, so it'd be great to have someone around in their general vicinity who happens to be heavily associated with Leonis to be able to teach them stuff like how to fight properly, how to properly wield a blade. And what do you know? We have a swordsman with over 4,000 years of life and combat experience, more than willing to teach them something if we keep Meliodas alive. So we get a great mentorship, which kind of doubles into the original issue of not knowing Meliodas. We get to see more sides of him that way. We could appreciate his presence more. Another reason why we need to keep him around. Let's get a little meta here. I know I've been discounting the original series in its entirety here for the sake of this video, but it's also Meliodas. And as many people have pointed out in the comment section, a lot of people only read the series for Meliodas. Like, they still are not yet invested in the new cast, a similar issue that Boruto had. So by immediately offing Meliodas 77 chapters in, you may just kill a whole chunk of your reader's base. Like, you may not want to do that. Meliodas is a bit too popular in your reader's base. On another level, Yeah, he's also just popular in general. Like, not even just your reader's base. Like, Meliodas is a moneymaker. Offing him would not necessarily be the best thing to do. You typically do not off your moneymaker when you are a creator of something. You do not just randomly remove them. And admittedly, well, it wouldn't be random. He is fighting the strongest being in the verse right now, or is about to. It still would be a not so fiscally sound decision to just whoop and remove Meliodas. Overall, it's just not one that makes sense on the meta level of things. So we have a few reasons, right? Character level, narrative level, meta level, all these things sort of come together for why Meliodas needs to stay alive. Because as much as I would like to have this moment where, built off the original connection we have to Meliodas and built off the fact that it would make sense narratively that he cannot keep up with someone like Chaos Arthur after losing his power, it still would actually be pretty cool to see him fight back. Like, this is just a superficial thing here, but if Meliodas does have a new power or has trained and has become strong enough to somewhat combat Chaos Arthur, it would be great. It would be amazing. It would be a cool way to keep Meliodas relevant without nerfing him, but at the same time keep it so that he cannot leave the kingdom because he will immediately lose it. I think it allows a certain balance that allows us to keep the series balanced. It allows us to have our four knights still be relevant. They will be the ones who shall go out and take down Arthur in Camelot. Meanwhile, Meliodas is a powerful being that's sort of just landlocked. Like, he can't move. Essentially, he's limited to the barriers of Leonis. It allows for us to essentially have our cake and eat it too. It still makes Arthur an extremely dangerous threat, but it also doesn't devalue Meliodas, because Meliodas is also an extremely dangerous threat, but he's an extremely dangerous threat that can't leave. Meanwhile, the knights are an extremely dangerous threat that can move freely. So I think keeping Meliodas alive works on that level too, just having a cool, powerful character to stick around. And once again, Meliodas can stay alive for now. It's not like we can keep his death endless. Like, he doesn't have to live forever. We can still off him, but just save it for later. Have more investment in him. Have him have more connections. Have him build more relationships. Have him establish a presence as a character in Four Knights of the Apocalypse before we execute him. In that case, when we do execute him, if we want to, we can make it more useful. We can keep it in such a way that it actually affects people, both from the original series and the current series. It allows for a much more overall tasteful package in comparison to just a swift, clean execution. Now, admittedly, after Chapter 77, I am definitely thinking if we're going to keep Meliodas alive, he's going to need a new power. The longest thing about the whole Meliodas versus Arthur situation is that we thought it wasn't going to happen this soon. Like, it didn't seem like it was going to, but then Arthur popped up in Chapter 76, and Meliodas arrived on the battlefield in Chapter 77. This battle is inevitable, and ultimately, I think the wiser narrative decision would be to keep him around. Keep him around for long enough that he can ward off this situation and have Arthur maybe grow ever stronger so the knights have a purpose. However, that's what I think. Please tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit the little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month. It gives us exclusive videos, early content, and more. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.